Ladies and gentlemen, this is Ardwick. Welcome back to Kerbal Space Program. Today we are going to build another piece of our mission to Eve. This is going to be the main chassis, the big part of the Charon that we're sending up. If the piece that we already have in orbit right now is considered the brains, the scientific part, then what we're going to build now is the bronze, the horsepower, the legs, the muscle of the Charon. The Charon, we're going to call this the Charon lower stage. Sure. And for funsies, which I cannot do yet because we have not set up a piece. I was going to try to change the mission flag. We'll do that as soon as we pick something. So, first we need to pick a main chassis, and we're going to use a part that we haven't used before. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you the Mobile Processing Laboratory. Now, you might be wondering what this thing is. The Processing Laboratory is a single piece, or a single launch piece, or not a launch piece, but a single module that we can put two Kerbal in, but they cannot control the craft from this processing lab. The idea, though, is that if you put some Kerbal inside, and actually, I'll be able to demonstrate this too in the launch pad, but if you put two Kerbal inside, and then attach something like a Science Junior, for example, on top, the idea is that if you use the Science Junior and then transmit the data, you can't use that Science Junior anymore. But the processing lab allows you to reuse unreusable systems. So we can reuse the Science Junior, we can reuse the Mystery Goo experiments, and it has an added bonus of giving us laboratory processing, which means that we'll get a higher boost of science from a transmitted mission. Usually by about 10 or 15%, depending on the project. You'll see it as we actually get into action here. But the general idea is that it's good to have one of these on your missions to other planets. But now we need to get this thing up to the Charon. So we're going to add our essential packs. Oh wow, that's right, of course we got these bigger pieces right here. So let's begin by adding some important pieces. I'm going to start by giving ourselves a reaction control system, an inclined reaction. Because when we build a vessel that's really big, we're going to want to be able to control it better. You know those vessels that we had before, how we had a hard time steering them? Well, these will make it a little bit easier for us to do. I am also going to add some living space on this craft too. I don't think this part's particularly necessary, but just in case we decide to add some more Kerbals to this thing, I want them to have some room. So we're going to put a lander can on this. Now, unlike the science lab that we have down here, the lander can, you can control the mission from this. So we can actually pilot the device from just the lander can. It can house up to 2 Kerbals, and if we put as many Kerbals as we could on this thing, we would have up to 4 permissible creatures on this at a given time. Also, I realized that we're going to want to have some power on this device, so I'm going to take a battery pack. We're actually going to take 2 of these bad boys. I'm going to staple one down here at the very bottom of the craft. And I'm also going to put one up here just beneath the tin can. So that should be enough power, or rather enough energy. We'll want to put some energy sources, like some solar panels or some RTGs on this thing, to make sure that it sustains its own power. But we'll get to that a little bit later. We might not even need to worry about that too much if we connect it to the current Charon mission, because that one has some big solar panels that should provide enough power for both of the main pieces. Anyway, let's see. Next up we need some ladders. The reason we want ladders for this mission is because we want to be able to have it so that the Kerbals can actually climb from this tin can down to the lower science module. There! Now, by setting it up like that, that gives the Kerbals plenty of space and it actually reaches down just far enough. There we have it. Now, the main chassis isn't quite done yet, because we need to add some more pieces to this as well. I am going to add a thin fuel tank, and I'm going to actually put it on top. Oops, not like that. Come on, you. There we go. You might be wondering why I want to put it on top of the command pod. That seems a little bit strange. Well, this thing is going to need a lot of power to get to Eve and back. So, we're going to have thrusters all over the place on this. I'm going to start by giving ourselves a docking port. Where is that guy? Utility. We're going to use one of our big docking ports. The docking port senior, as it were. And I'm going to try to orient it so that the ladders that are listed right here are, again, there, so that they're all evenly on this side. I'm going to plop it down right here. Now, try to visualize it. That docking port is going to connect to the chair that we currently have out in space. So it's going to start with the command module up here, lower down, so that the ladder that was connected to that module now goes all the way down here, so that it reaches every major living space that we have aboard this craft. And of course I want to make sure that we have enough ladders on this to allow you to reach all those places. So that was under utility, I believe, or was it structural? I can never find the pieces I need when I need them to, except for when I don't need them. Is it indeed structural? There it is. That's why I can't find it. It's hiding from me. So then, let's turn this upside down. Plop it, about right here. Let's see how that looks when it's extended. Ah, that works wonderfully, actually. So, with these ladders in place, we should have them reaching every place that we need to actually reach on the mission. So the main chassis of our project is complete. Now, we need to get this thing up to the Charon. And this is where things get fun. So, let me first start by saying that we're going to need a lot of power on this bad boy. Let's begin by giving ourselves some side thrusters. We're going to be using... Oh, actually, you know what? I'm not done. There's one more thing that I want to add to this project, too. Down here, or rather in the propulsion section, if we go to the next page, there's a brand new piece that we have here that I don't believe we've used before. It's called the RCS fuel tank. It basically fills us with a lot of mono-propellant fuel, but unlike these smaller ones that only give us 50 or 100 or so on, this one gives us 750. And by connecting this to the main piece right here, it sort of creates a hub for all that energy to go in, or rather all that fuel to go into. And finally, at the very bottom, I want to add another docking port senior. So, in the event that we need to, we can attach even more to this craft at the bottom down here. Let me just make sure our ladders are aligned. There we go. I don't really think we need to worry about aligning the ladders too much. It's more or less for fun, honestly. Let's extend the ladders. There. We should be able to get to everywhere we want to go on this thing now. I may have to create a separate button for ladder deploys, I realize. Anyway, this is our main chassis. This is going to be the main sort of Brawn, rather, for the launch system. At the bottom here, we're going to make sure that we also have it serve as a connecting hub for a lot of our missions that'll be traveling to Eve. I want to have 4 docking ports down here in a perpendicular pattern. And we also want to make sure that things that dock to them can be easily seen. So, I'm going to put some lights just above the docking ports so that when they activate, they illuminate the doors, which make it easier for us to dock to later on. I also realized that we're going to want to have some up on the upper stage here, because when I was developing our mission earlier, our original Charon piece, I realized that we didn't quite have lights here, so let's compensate by adding some lights down here. Okay, now we have our hub, but we need to give this thing some power. And again, here's where the fun part comes in. We need some structural elements. We're going to be using these tall steel girders. We're going to put them on the side, rather. We're going to put them at a sort of X-like pattern right here. We need about 4 of these guys. There we go. And we're going to add some serious thrusting capabilities on this thing. So let's begin by adding one of these big fuel tanks. There we go, nice and even. And one of these even bigger fuel tanks. And now then, the main thrusting element that we're going to have here is going to be a little bit small, actually. So in fact, I am going to take these adapters and staple them underneath, like this. And now, the main thrust for this particular module, which is going to be a permanent set thrust here, is going to be using some atomic rockets. These very efficient rockets that, once we get into orbit, should be pretty useful to have. The idea for these rockets is that the fuel starts in this main tank that we have right here, and then we're going to be using some fuel ducts. And these fuel ducts will come from the main tank and extend all the way out to the smaller tank here. So, oh, actually, I realize I may want to lower the girders here a bit. Let's see if we put the X button. Whoa, that's no good. I'm just going to lower it ever so slightly so that we can actually connect these fuel ducts a little bit easier. There we go. So, this center hub right here will supply fuel to all these side thrusters. Once this energy runs out, these will run out on their own. But let's say I wanted to refuel the atomic thrusters. But there are 4 of them, right? So how can I evenly distribute fuel to all 4 of these? Well, if we put fuel in the main thruster here, it will equally, on all sides, drain out to these bigger thrusters, which will make it easier for us to refuel this in a way that is still perfectly symmetrical. If we don't do it like this, then, and if one of these ran out faster than the other 3, then the thrust would be uneven and we'd start spiraling in space, which is bad. So, by having fuel coming from the center here, that makes it a bit easier to control. Obviously, this device needs some support, so let's also be sure to make sure that we have a nice sturdy craft here too. So we're going to add a ton of struts right here. We'll put some on the X's. A good way to know where to put struts is by using the girder's X's, actually, where the bars intersect. Like here, for example. I'll connect those over to the edge like so. We'll connect some further struts over here, and make sure that they go, about there, I believe. Let's make sure that's nice and symmetrical. Not quite, we can do better than that. There, that should be symmetrical. Almost. The nice thing about these is that after we set them up initially, we won't have to worry about doing it again. So, okay, right in this intersection right here should be good. Perfect. Okay, so that's a bit more symmetrical. And now we have this sort of outer webbing of struts here. But I think we can do even better still. I'll add one more on the sides here that connect like so, and there we have it. This should be a nice, sturdy, stable craft. And this, I think, on its own actually might have the power to actually reach orbit. But we can do better. Actually, we realize that there are a couple of important structural elements that are missing, such as energy. We're going to need some source of energy to fuel up these batteries once we start to run low on power. And I am actually going to use a couple of different devices here. Let us consider using some of our solar panels. We're not going to use that many, to be honest. We'll put 4 of them on the outsides like this, so they're all nice and evenly spaced out. And one more thing I think we can do to increase our chances for sustaining energy is by taking these RTGs, the ones that we earned a bit earlier in our series, and I'm going to place them right underneath the struts. Or can I? I don't think I'm able to, actually. Hold on. I have to zoom in a little bit further on this. Huh. Yeah, it's slightly uneven. Well, no matter. I'll just put them here instead. Nope. But the game doesn't want me to. Oh, there we go. That's better. Wait, how many am I... Oh, I see. They're slightly uneven. There. There we go. Oh, but having it above the doorway like that isn't a good idea either. Hold on. We can make this work. You know what? I'll put them on the sides, like this. Put them right underneath. There we go. Okay, now we're even. Now, the reason why I'm putting RTGs on this is because even though we don't really need them, the idea is that if we ever take this craft away from the inner solar system, which we plan to, definitely, the mission is to go to Jewel eventually, we're going to want to make sure that this thing keeps having power. And the further away we get from Jewel, the less power we're going to be getting from the solar panels. Well, the RTGs should kick in to compensate for that lost energy, so we shouldn't run out of fuel now. Let's see what else we can do to this craft. I'm not going to put any science modules on this because that'll make it more expensive, and frankly, we already have all the science modules we need from the upper piece that we already have in orbit. So, I think all we really need to do to make sure this thing is nice and sturdy and stable is to actually put some launch system underneath this. Or actually, no, there is one more thing I can think of. Let me start by putting another docking port underneath here. I'm gonna try to do it so that we have the ladders. Actually, it really doesn't matter at this stage because it's beneath the docking port. Yeah, it doesn't matter, but I'll put it down here anyway. We're gonna want to have some final thrust, and that's, remember how we got heavy rocketry like these big guys? We're gonna try to connect these to the Charon, just to give us one final extra bit of fun thrust. Let's start by adding one of these. Well, actually, no. Let's just add one of these. We don't need it to be that small or anything. So we'll put that down there. We're gonna need a structural element. This big guy right here, and let's connect one of these larger fuel tanks. Let's use... that might be too large, actually. We'll want to consider our mass and our weight ratio here. Huh. And then put this underneath like so. This... I'm not sure what sort of power we can get out of this. I might have to experiment with it a bit. I'm worried that this might actually be a lot of mass for something we don't really need to carry up. I'm going to have to experiment with this, actually. I might be doing that off camera to see how that looks. Okay, so this carries a significant more amount of fuel than the smaller tank up here, of course. Maybe if I connected another tank, or if I just plugged in a larger one. Let me try plugging in a larger one and seeing how well that does. We're gonna need to re-add our struts, of course. You know, this might actually be enough to put us into the orbit. That I'm not entirely sure about, to be honest, though. We're gonna have to find out. And maybe just for our own sanity, too, we're also gonna want to add some boosters on this thing that we dismiss on the way up from the launch. Just so that... oh, darn it all. Just so that we're not burning all this fuel up right away, because the more fuel that we save on this part of the mission by the time we get it into orbit, the more fuel we're going to have to allow us to get to Eve. And also, let's do our action groups. So, let me try to launch this thing now, actually. The only action groups I can really think of worrying about are the actual ladders here. So I'll go ladder, ladder, ladder. I guess number 2, our science action group, we can toggle this, our crew report. We can't really do anything with our processing lab as an action group button. But if we go to channel 1, or custom channel 1, we can at least toggle the solar panels here to turn on. There we go. Let's finally consider our crew. We are going to want to have only 2 people on this particular mission. We're going to want to have room for spare on this. 2 spare, rather. And I don't want to send Jebediah or Bill up just yet. Now, this down here is a science processing laboratory. We're going to want to put some characters who are not stupid in there. Well, or at least I feel like we should. I don't think we necessarily have to, but it's a personal preference of mine. The least stupid people should be the ones who actually go into the lab. That just makes sense to me. Now, we can take a look at our available crew that we have right now, but there is one more thing we can do to add crew to this mission. And I think we've briefly touched up on this once. If we go to our, what was it called? Our astronaut complex. We can hire some astronauts here to go on our mission with us. Let's see what we have here. Ooh, look at that! We have Jobald, who is incredibly brave and very smart. Let's bring him on. I like him. And Gooseland looks like he's pretty good too, actually, in terms of his low stupidity levels. So let's bring him. So we're going to bring Jobald and Guslin along with us. They, like Noonie, who's currently in the original Charon mission, will be permanent residents of space once they launch. Well, okay, as far as I can tell, we should be good to go, I think. Let me, finally, adjust our crew. We're going to be putting in Jobald and Guslin. We're going to be putting them in the lander cans, initially, just so that we can pilot this thing up to a safe and controlled orbit. Once they achieve that orbit, we're going to put them down in the, well, actually, I believe once we achieve that orbit, we'll put them in the processing lab, and they will eventually be met by Noonie, who is currently operating the brains of the Charon. Oh, and of course we want to change our mission flag. Can't forget that. Okay. I'm going to try to light this candle. Let's do this.